Bum, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Bum 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 ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 bum ba-dum 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 ba-dum. Rum bum ba la da la da la da la da la da la da la da. Ba ba da ba dum. Hello, casual fanatics. It's time for another Fun 5e builds. We're going to build ourselves a Jedi. And I'm way too early to be singing that high, apparently. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fun 5e builds. And as I said, this is the one I've been waiting for. This is the one I've been anticipating. The one I've been trying to hype up for you. Fun 5e builds Jedi versus Sith. So this one is made entirely possible by the fact that the wonderful folks over at Nerdarchy actually came up with a way to build Jedi in D&D 5th edition. And so I have built a Jedi according to those rules, and then I built a Sith according to my own suggestions along the same lines. So we're going to take a look at them, and in the end, I'm going to ask you to compare them and see which one you prefer. Do you prefer the light side or the dark side? Let's find out. Anyway, let's start here with Master Rapare Peregrinus. If you're wanting to know any why I picked this particular name, Peregrinus is derived from peregrine falcon, which is my personal favorite bird. Very, very speedy bird of prey, can dive bomb at over 200 miles an hour. So, and as for his first name, Rapare, it is actually a corruption of the Latin word rapere, which is the root word for raptor or bird of prey, which falcons are. I don't have much creativity, do I? Anyway, let's take a look at what we've got here, and we're going to come back to this page in a bit when we come to look at things. But first, I want you to just pay attention to the little miniature depiction in the corner there. If you can see it, you might have to go full screen to see it properly. Of that I have of Master Peregrinus. This particular character builder, it was tough to get colors exactly the way I wanted them because a lot of the colors were more textures than anything. Right, so let's start out with the basics. He is a human. In the Star Wars universe, actually, he would be, let's make him Corellian in origin. You know, same home planet as the likes of Han Solo or Wedge Antilles. His class, mechanically, is a warlock. And because we're doing movie level power, he is level 20. By the way, I'd also like to take a moment to let you know, you probably notice things look a little different. That's because I'm using a different method to build these characters so that all the fun little flavor text that I can put in gets to be put in there and I can customize a lot better. This is called Beyond Tabletop, and it works alongside your Google account and your Google storage, where you can actually save character sheets onto your Google account, and it is completely free. You do not have to pay for it. And not only can you build 5e characters, you can also build Pathfinder characters. So it is a very, very useful tool. What I did to create these characters was I did use the spreadsheet that I had been using to kind of get a rough outline. And you might see some artifacts from that still left in the character build. But once I finished that up, then I transferred it over here and I put in all the various different customizable things that needed to be put in. So, anyway, also the use of Beyond Tabletop lets me do one other thing that I had not done before in any previous version of Fun 5e builds, and that's go over some of the more role-playing aspects of the character. Well, one I was able to put into the spreadsheet, which is his alignment is lawful good, because he is a master Jedi. He is a Jedi master. He's the guy that, all the young Padawans and younglings and apprentices look up to. And, being light side of the Force, he's a goody-goody two-shoes. Nothing wrong with that. But here's where we're getting into the stuff that I get to do for the first time on this show. The background and all the various different personality traits that go along with it. Now, the background I had done a little bit about on the other, but now we really get into the personality part of it, the more role-playing aspects. Background for Master Peregrinus is going to be Sage, because I think of him as being a very studious kind of a person. One who's very much into learning more about the Force and being willing to teach that to his young Padawans. And as part of his equipment, he has a letter, or in this case, in this universe, a holocron, from a dead colleague posing a question that has not yet been answered. And we'll get to that here a little bit further down in the bonds. He has a specialty for this background, and that specialty is Professor, because, again, he is a Jedi Master. He is responsible for teaching young Force-sensitive people in the ways of the Force and bringing them up as Jedi. So I found that only fitting to create a Jedi Master with a Professor specialty. Personality traits. I'm used to helping out those who aren't as smart as I am, and I patiently explain anything and everything to others. A necessary trait if you're going to be training young, potentially reckless people in the arts of slowing the fuck down and calming the fuck up. Ideals. Self-improvement. The goal of a life of study is the betterment of oneself. Now that says that's suitable for any alignment, but really I think it does fit the Jedi to a T. It's all about learning about the Force, making yourself a better person, and making the world a better place, or the galaxy a better place. So I really find that a more appropriate ideal for a Jedi Master to have. It's a very innocuous idea. It's a very good idea. Yeah, it can be twisted to darker ends, possibly, but for the most part, it's a noble, respectable goal. Bonds. I've been searching my whole life for the answer to a certain question. That's where that letter from a dead colleague comes in, or the holocron from Jedi Masters past. Here's what I'm thinking the question that he's searching the answer for is. What is the nature of the Force? Specifically, why does the Force have a light and a dark side? with no room in between. I mean, sure, there have been gray Jedi in the past who have used maybe a few powers from the dark side of it and have been out and out renegades to the Jedi Council and left the Council to study the Force on their own. But they're never presented as morally neutral. They're presented as being good people, being people who believe in the power of the Force to change the world for the better. They're just doing it a different way. So, gray Jedi aren't really that big of a shade of gray. They're just another flavor of light. And in this case, Master Peregrinus wants to know why that's the case. He's met some gray Jedi in his travels. He's seen them. He knows them to be good people. He doesn't understand why they're gray just because they're not following the Jedi Council. And while Master Peregrinus is very loyal to the Council, he wants to find a way to reach out to these good-hearted Jedi without forcing them back into the structure and the fold of the Jedi Council. He wants to kind of bridge the gap between Council and Grey. But in order to do that, he needs to find out why the Force is why it is, and why the Force seems to be so segmented in itself, why there's a light side and a dark side. Last but not least, his flaws. And I'm going to reflavor this as appropriate for Star Wars. Most people scream and run when they see a Sith. I stop and ask questions. Yes, the Sith is more than likely trying to kill him, but that doesn't stop him from having an intellectual curiosity in the dark side. He's not going to be inclined to fall to the dark side or use the dark side powers, but he has an intellectual curiosity about it, because in his mindset, aside from trying to answer that one question, when you know your enemy, you have greater power over them, and you have a better ability to combat them. When you know how your enemy works, you know better how to counter them. Alright. So let's take a look at our ability scores. And these ability scores are going to end up including all the various different bonuses, which I don't remember where all the bonuses came from, so forgive me for not saying specifically where. Feats and such. Base strength is a 10. At level 20th, it has managed to increase to 11. Base dex is 12. By level 20, it's increased to 14. So pretty good dex. Not like a super high dex, but a moderately high dex. Constitution 9. So by level 20, it's only increased as much as 10. It's only increased to 10. So he's not a very bulky kind of a character, but that's not the way he fights. He's not that kind of a fighter. Intelligence, start out with 12, ended up at a 14, so pretty darn intelligent. Not, like Mensa level genius, but pretty above average. Wisdom, by far his highest score, base 18. And I would like to remind you that yes, I do actually roll these. If you'd like, I can start doing periscopes where I roll these so you can see the numbers that I get and see what my process is when I decide to throw out numbers that are inordinately horrible for these. Anyway, base wisdom 18, final total 21. That's a really high wisdom score. So, dude has a lot of years under his belt, and he's seen a lot of shit. So, charisma, again, already high to begin with, just base 16 base charisma, ended up at an 18. So, not only is he wise, he's able to talk to people, which is kind of a good ability to have when your entire job involves instructing people in the ways of the Force. Alright, skills. I'm just going to go over the proficiencies here. Of course, he's proficient in Arcana because the Force is a kind of magic. Queen reference. Deception. You think this an odd choice for a Jedi to be proficient in, but hear me out on this. While Jedi are taught not to outright lie, they do have a way of obfuscating the truth. I point you to Obi-Wan Kenobi, when his certain point of view told young Luke Skywalker that his father had been killed by Darth Vader. Not patently true, but not technically incorrect either. Because, yeah, the Anakin Skywalker that had been Obi-Wan's apprentice, that had been Obi-Wan's friend and brother, did die on Mustafar. And he was replaced by Darth Vader. At the same time, yeah, while Jedi don't outright lie, they do tend to dance around the truth and use half-truths to sometimes get around things that people are not prepared for. Because let's face it, Luke would not have been prepared to hear, what happened to my father? Oh, he became Darth Vader. You know, that guy that's helping run the Empire? That dude? Yeah, he's your dad. No shit. See, he wouldn't have been ready for that. Alright, history, because again, he is a very studious. Investigation, also proficient in that. Perception, by far his highest score, because again, you know, he's got to be able to be aware of his surroundings as a Jedi and be able to be aware of the situation in order to diplomacize properly. Excuse me. Persuasion, useful in many facets of the Jedi life, both as diplomacy and as a manipulation tactic. And religion, because, well, let's face it, Jedi is kind of a religion, especially in certain parts of Europe. So we're going to hop back up to the overview page and take a look at the combat abilities there, because it's kind of easier to make heads or tails of them. It should be noted that as a warlock, you do have certain kind of pacts that you can go with various different patrons. In this case, he's a Pact of the Blade warlock. Pact of the Blade warlocks can create a blade for themselves out of the aether, really. And it is essentially a magical blade in all forms, at least when it comes to ignoring resistances and such. So, in this case, his pact blade, his magic blade that he can summon at will, is his lightsaber in the form mechanically of a short sword. Of course, he can also use a blaster, although they are more clumsy and random than a lightsaber. And while I have it represented here by Eldritch Blast, that plus 10 is actually his spellcasting modifier. By the way, I don't have it listed here, but the spell save for his spells is 18, so pretty tough to save against his spells. As for HP, while he's not a con build, He does have quite a bit of HP, and let me peel behind the curtain here to show you about what I usually do when I put in the HP. In order to give about a good average of what the HP could be for a build like this, I just punch in, the max hit die for each particular level. So it starts off, at a certain amount of HP for first level, and then I just add in 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, because it makes for a good average. And so that's how I ended up with 180 hit points, which is quite a lot of hit points. So while he's not really super, super bulky, he is kind of durable. AC, he is not wearing armor. I went ahead and did my usual thing where I don't give them armor just because I mean, Jedi don't wear armor. They wear robes. So what I did to calculate his AC is I went ahead and gave him mage armor. So whenever he casts mage armor, that's what his AC is going to be, 15. Not great, but it could be worse. All right. Invocations and spells, we'll get into that later on. Yeah, there's a spell save DC. All right. So let's take a look at his powers. Now, I know it says here that the otherworldly patron is listed as Great Old One. No. His patron is the Force, and a powerful patron it is. And you can also see I did put in Pact of the Blade, because, I mentioned that earlier. Eldritch Master and Entropic Ward are a couple of features that are really, really great to have for a Warlock, and I'll show that to you, what those do here in a little bit, along with the invocations. And actually, I'm going to pull an audible here on this very episode and put in a different invocation, because there was one that I noticed at a previous date when I was looking through this did not have much relevance. So I'm going to go ahead and change that up. So let's take a look at some of the features and traits. Now, this will not include all of the traits from the Warlock patron, but we'll get into that. All right. Feature related to his particular background: researcher. If you do not know a piece of information, you know where or from whom you can obtain it, or if the information is secreted away or cannot be found. Right? Spellcasting, arcane foci, which, while it's technically not accurate to the canon in any way, for the sake of mechanics, I've kind of had to dance around that. Spellcasters do use arcane focuses to be able to cast their spells, things that they can channel their energy through. In the case of the Jedi and the Sith, which you'll see later, Jedi and Sith don't channel anything. Don't channel necessarily through anything reliably. So mechanically, I had to represent that by using the crystals in their lightsaber. So technically, their spellcasting focus is a crystal, but it's embedded into their lightsaber, so it's not like it's something that they actually have to use to focus the spell. It's really just there to fit with the mechanics. All right, Awakened Mind. Communicate telepathically with any creature you can see within 30 feet. See, there's a reason there. And now let's get into the invocations. The one that I put in there is not going to show up on this list because this was copy pasted over from the spreadsheet. Armor of Shadows. What that is, that's how I get mage armor on these characters as a default. It becomes an at-will spell that you can use without needing to spend a spell slot or prepare the spell. So basically, since they're not wearing any armor, that automatically becomes their armor. Alright, since the main feature of Warlocks is their cantrip Eldritch Blast, their main attacking ability most of the time, a lot of these invocations actually turn Eldritch Blast into a kind of a Force Push. So we have Repelling Blast. When you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast, push it 10 feet away. Beguiling Influence, proficient in Deception and Persuasion. That's where the proficiency to Deception came in. But again, as I explained earlier, if you think about it from a certain point of view, the Jedi do deceive. The Eldritch Sight can cast Detect Magic at will without using a spell slot. Think Force Sense. Eldritch Spear, range of an Eldritch Blast is 300 feet. So we're getting kind of into the Force Awakens kind of, or not the Force Awakens, the Force Unleashed kind of territory there. Ascendant Step, cast Levitate on yourself at will without using a spell slot or material components. It's not flight per se, but it does kind of help with some of the more acrobatic Jedi maneuvers when they do lightsaber battle, particularly in some of the later movies. Eyes of the Runekeeper. You can read all writing, a very useful skill for a diplomat to have. And Otherworldly Leap. Cast Jump on yourself at will without using a spell slot or material components, which again, Force Leap. Alright. The Entropic Ward Feed. When attacked, use reaction to impose disadvantage on the person who's on the attack against you. If it misses, your next attack against the attacker before the end of your next turn has advantage. Once used, a short rest recuperates it. So that's basically a lightsaber parry. It's basically a one-off lightsaber parry. You know, you block, get it just in the right position, and your next attack has a higher chance of hitting. I don't think I've ever explained the disadvantage-advantage mechanic before. In D&D 5e, you can have disadvantage or advantage on a check or an attack roll. What it is in both cases you roll 2d20. And in the case of disadvantage, you have to take the lower of the two rolls. In the case of advantage, you have the higher of the two rolls that you can take. So that's how advantage, disadvantage works. So basically in this case, the person who's attacking you has to roll another die and take the lower. And if it misses, you get to roll 2 die on your next attack and take the higher. Thought Shield. You can't be read. Your thoughts can't be read by telepathy or any other means unless you allow it. Whenever you are dealt psychic damage, the creature who inflicted it takes the same amount. Because he is a Jedi Master. He is well trained in guarding his mind against intrusion from other Force-sensitive people. Mystic Arcanum. This is another sub-feature of the Warlock class. This is really the only way that you can get spells that are able to be casted at above 5th level, because otherwise you only have 5th level spell slots to cast with. You can cast each Mystic Arcanum spell once without using a spell slot. Long Rest recoups all uses of the Mystic Arcanum. So these are basically, for those of you who ever played 4E, these are your dailies. Sixth level Mystic Arcanum that he gets is True Seeing. We'll explain exactly what these do later. Seventh level Etherealness. Eighth level spell Power Word Stun, and the ninth level spell Foresight. Alright. Create Thrall, that's probably a great old one feat, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. My apologies for not having done that previously. Eldritch Master. Spend 1 minute entreating with your patron to gain all spell slots. Once used, long rest recoups. So basically, in the middle of battle, you can take time out of the battle with one action to kind of gather the force around you and get all of your spell slots back. Which, considering you only have a handful of level 5 spell slots, is an insanely useful thing to have. Of course, it's once a day, so you can't use it again until a long rest. And now for the feats that I actually gave him. I gave him 2 rounds of ability score increases and 3 active feats, one of which is my much beloved Weapon Master, because I wanted to make sure he was proficient in Short Sword to be able to use his Pact Blade properly. I don't know, I always had a fascination with magicians that can use swords as well. I've always loved that. And anyway, here are the other 2 feats that I took for him. Mobile. When you dash, difficult terrain does not cost extra movement. After a melee attack, don't provoke opportunity attacks from that target for the rest of the turn. So that's basically kind of a 4-speed dodge, really. And then Warcaster. Have advantage on Constitution saves to maintain concentration due to damage. You can perform somatic components while holding weapons or shields, so basically you can still use force abilities even while you're holding a lightsaber. When you make an opportunity attack, you can cast a spell instead. For casting time 1 action targets only the provoking creature. Again, a very powerful ability to have. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the spells that we've got here on Master Peregrinus. Alright, Arcane Eye. It is a concentration spell. Excuse me. Create invisible eye that has normal and dark vision out to 30 feet. And you can move it around and see things out far beyond you. There's no limit to how far away the eye can move as long as it's on the same plane. Basically, kind of a way to see through the Force. Bigsby's Hand. This can either work as Force Push, Force Pull, or in some cases Force Choke, depending on what you're using it for. It creates a large hand that mimics the movement of your hand. It has an AC of 20. Its HP is equal to your maximum HP. Strength is 26. Dexterity is 10. You use your bonus action to move the hand 60 feet and choose one of the following things that you can do. You can clench the fist, make a melee attack with your hand using your game stats, does 46 force damage. Forceful Hand. Adjacent target makes strength versus strength check or is pushed 5 feet times spellcasting modifier plus 1, which in this case the spellcasting modifier is charisma, so 5 feet times 5 feet times 4, I think. Hold on, I gotta double check that. Yeah, 5 feet times 4 plus 1. I imagine they're trying to add 1 to the what they want you to do is they want you to actually add one to the mod. So 5 feet times 5, push 25 feet. And the hand moves with it. Grasping hand. Hand grapples huge or smaller creature. You have advantage if the target is medium or smaller. While hand is grappling, use bonus action to crush, dealing 2d6 plus spellcasting mod bludgeoning damage. So again, there's your force choke, there are your force crush. Interposing hand. Hand moves between you and creature you choose, providing half cover, and target can't move through hand space if its strength score is lower than the hand's. Alright. And that's a 5th level spell, so. Alright, so yeah, you can see all the fun things that Bigsby's hand can do. Blade Ward, very useful thing to have if you're a Jedi, especially if you're fighting other people with lightsabers. Charm Person. Jedi Mind Trick. Confusion. Jedi Mind Trick. Right. Detect magic, force sense, dispel magic so that you can, deflect like lightning bolts, force lightning, and such like that. Eldritch Blast, we talked a little bit about its casting ability earlier. Here's what its damage does. Its range is normally 120 feet, so that's normally a high range spell. And it is a cantrip, so its duration is instant. You make your ranged spell attack to deal 1d10 force damage. It creates 4 beams that you roll a separate attack roll for. So you roll 4 ranged spell attacks, and if they all hit, then, if they all hit, then they do 4d10 force damage. And from what I understand, you don't have to use those beams all to the same place. You can actually send the beams out to different places. So if you got one guy that's near death, you send one out to him, hopefully hit it, kill him, and then have the other beams concentrate on another guy. Enhance ability, basically using the force to increase one's physical or mental attributes. You can get advantage on constitution checks with Bear's Endurance, advantage on strength checks with Bull's Strength, advantage on dex checks with Cat's Grace, advantage on charisma checks with the Eagle's Splendor, advantage on intelligence checks with the Fox's Cunning, or advantage on wisdom checks with Owl's Wisdom. You can cast that on multiple creatures if you cast it at a 5th level slot, which if you're a warlock, you don't have much choice to do. Etherealness. You remember when in A New Hope, sorry about that, Siri was kind of flaking out on me there. You remember when in A New Hope, Darth Vader goes, and I realize this is spoilers for people who haven't watched the movie, but let's face it, if you're watching this, you're probably a Star Wars fan, and you've probably seen the movie, multiple times in fact, when both Obi-Wan and Yoda die in the movies, and their bodies just fade away, leaving nothing but their clothes and what else was wrapped around them, like in Yoda's case, his bedsheet. Well, in the expanded universe, Luke actually learned how to do this and then come back. Of course, that part of the expanded universe is now no longer active because of the alteration to the canon done in the wake of Episode 7, but it doesn't change the fact that it exists. So, this, to me, is basically what that is. You move into a different plane. You can see and hear in the original plane, and you can return to it in a different spot. This isn't a powerful spell to have because you can basically step around somebody, get into a better position, come back, and get the drop on them. Foresight, kind of a force sense or force precognition. Willing creature can't be surprised and has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saves. Other creatures have disadvantage on attacks against it. You can see why that's a 9th level spell. Haste. Think force speed from some of the video games, like the Jedi Knight series. Your willing creature's speed is doubled. And by the way, I don't think I covered this. So let me go back briefly and show you something. This boy's speed, if I can find it. This boy's speed is 40. So he's a very speedy guy. If you think about it in terms of some of the, say, D&D 4E mechanics, if that's what you're used to, 40 feet is equivalent to 8 squares. He can move that naturally. Now, cast haste. He can now move 16 squares in a single jump. Oh, and by the way, he gains a +2 bonus to his AC, has advantage on dex saves, and gains an additional action each turn. And this has a 1-minute duration, so I believe it lasts a couple of turns. Alright. Oh, and that additional action each turn can only be used to attack, dash, disengage, hide, or use an object. So, but that's okay, because he's probably going to be using that to get in, speedily attack with his lightsaber. And then use his bonus action to abscond. When the spell ends, target loses the next turn. So it's it kind of works kind of like going brave in Bravely Default, where you get multiple actions on your turn where you can attack multiple times, but then once it uses, you've got to kind of hang back for a little while to regain your turn. But even so, it's an insanely powerful spell to have, especially for this guy, because it basically gives you two turns in one. Heat metal, exceptionally useful if you're fighting against, say, droids. Jump, we mentioned that earlier, it's force lead. Levitate, same thing. Mage armor, got that by default thanks to Armor's Shadows. Mage hand, again, this kind of works as force pull and force push, especially how it was depicted in some of the Jedi Knight games, like my personal favorite, Jedi Academy. Non-detection, because even Jedi's got to learn how to be stealthy, you know. Power word stun. This was another one of the Mystic Arcanums. I went with power word stun on this because if you think about it, Jedi are taught not to kill if at all possible. At the same time, once a Jedi draws his lightsaber, he better be ready to kill a motherfucker. But he wants to try and use diplomacy to fix problems without violence, because a good Jedi does not jump straight into violence. A Jedi tries to find other ways. So, in this case, power word stun is a really powerful spell for this effect, because if the target has 150 HP or fewer, it is stunned. Make con save at the end of each turn to end this effect. So, no attack roll, no save at the instant that it is cast. They're just stunned. And if they want to become unstunned, they have to make a Constitution save. What does stunned mean? Stun means you can't do shit. That's pretty much it. Protection from evil and good. Target is protected against aberrations, celestials, elemental, fae, and undead. And in this case, so, pretty much that gives you protection against anything that's not a Jedi. Scrying, again, kind of a force precognition. Suggestion, Jedi mind trick. Telekinesis, again, force push, force pull. True seeing, again, force intuition. True strike. This is a spell I love giving regardless. It is a concentration spell for 1 round, but it does give you advantage on your first attack roll against a target, as long as that spell is still going by the time your next turn comes around. And then Witch Bolt. Witch Bolt is an archetypal warlock spell, and I almost hesitated to put it on Master Peregrinus because it does lightning damage. And, of course, Force Lightning is kind of somewhat more under the milieu of the Sith, because it's not designed to kill directly. It's designed to create a lot of suffering before you're dead. So ultimately, I think the reason why I went ahead and put this on here is because for Jedi, you can always just reflavor this to be force damage, and then on every action, instead of dealing more lightning damage, you're just pushing a little more. So you can forego the lightning damage if your DM allows it, and instead do force damage. Whether or not it'll actively push, again, that's something you can talk over with your DM. He might be willing to drop the amount of damage down in order to add a push effect. Make it, say, a D10 instead, and make it kind of like an alternative to Eldritch Blast. But now we get into the meat of things, and this is the part that I admittedly kind of shamelessly stole from Nerdarchy. Sorry, guys. Actually, in all seriousness, thank you, Nerdarchy, for this, for putting this up. I wish I could send you money to become a patron of you guys, but well, I kind of trying to go to MagFest. So anyway, the patron, the Force, and I tried to put quotes with these to represent what they are in context of the Star Wars universe. Some of these I may not have remembered exactly correctly, so feel free to yell at me in the comments. So here's the quote that I gave for the summary for the Force Patron. From Obi-Wan Kenobi, from A New Hope. The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It surrounds us, penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. Description from Nerdarchy Ted. Your patron is the Force. It is not a single being, but the energy that flows through all things. Thank you, Ted, for not mentioning midichlorians. By serving the Force, you put its desires above your own as you strive to be a better individual by making a better whole. You are a peacekeeper and protector. You bring justice to those that need it, and a swift defeat to those who stand up to you. Alright. Level 1 feats for the Force Patron. First one is Force Sensitivity. And the quote I have for it from Star Wars, from Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi: "The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. And my sister has it." So, here is the description, again, per Ted. At first level, you have the ability to be attached to the Force irrevocably. You can feel the Force flowing through all things and can sense it in others. You can use it to guide the story and your decisions. Your DM can give you story clues and even premonitions that the Force can show you based on how attuned you are. Which, a little expansion on that. Of course, at level 20, he is very much a high-level master, Peregrinus is, so your DM may be more free to give you information because of him being a Jedi Master than he would if Peregrinus was still at, say, Padawan or Jedi Knight levels. The other level 1 Force Patron feat, highly trained. This one, from Empire Strikes Back. You will go to the Dagobah system. There you will be trained by Yoda, the Jedi Master who taught me. My Alec Guinness is not great. And this one I decided to give the description in my own words. Gain 1 additional skill proficiency in a skill of your choice with DM's approval. I can't remember which one I picked for that. I may have picked religion for that. Anyway, once you reach level 6 with the Force Patron, you gain quickness of action. And this is another one of those that I think I don't quite remember right. Hang on a sec. Sorry. You don't want to know what that was. Anyway, the quote from A New Hope that I may have misremembered from Obi-Wan Kenobi. This time, focus your mind and act on instinct. Description, again courtesy of Nerdarchy Ted. Your attunement to the Force has allowed you to move with more speed. You can gain a bonus action to take the move or disengage action. So this is basically like a bonus action from a rogue. Once you reach level 10, you get Solidity of Thought. And the quote here from Return of the Jedi from Luke Skywalker. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me. Description, again taken directly from Ted. Your mind has become attuned to the Force and grants you advantages on mental saving throws that would make you lose control of your actions. Basically, somebody tries to charm you. And the last feat here, level 14, A Surge of Purpose. And this one, from Return of the Jedi. You'll find I'm full of surprises. You can push yourself beyond your normal limits for a brief moment. On your turn, you can make 1 additional action on top of your regular action and bonus action. You must finish a short or long rest before you can use this again. So basically, it kind of works somewhat like haste, except you must take a rest in order to get it back. Personally, if I were the DM, I would go with needing a long rest to recoup this because it is a very powerful ability. And that's going to be the long and the short of it for Master Peregrinus, the Jedi Master. But I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you are thinking, I want something with a little more power, something quicker and easier to understand, something a little bit darker. All I can say to that is, good. Good. I can feel the hate swelling in you now. Come with me, as after the commercial break, we will explore the dark side. So, my apprentice, you have returned to see what lies on the dark side. The kind of power a true Sith can hold. Well then, take a look at my finest creation that I have foreseen the arrival of Darth Tenebris. I'm sorry I had to do that. By the way, $15 at Walmart. Well worth the purchase. Anyway, Darth Tenebris, also a level 20 warlock. This is our Sith character. And, you know, the Force is his ally. And a powerful ally it is as well. If you look at his picture up there in the upper left-hand corner, you can see all the edge. Of course, with a name like that, Darth Tenebris, of course, he's very dark and edgy. If you're wondering where that name came from, I just, for some reason, I freaking love Latin, even though I don't know it all that much in depth. Tenebris is taken from the Latin root word tenebrae, which means darkness. Darth Darkness. Low on the nose, huh? Told you I wasn't that creative. Anyway, this one I built largely for power and strength. He is all about dealing as much damage as possible. So he's not very fast, and he doesn't have a lot of defensive capability, but he doesn't think he needs it. So let's take a look at some of the basics here. Of course, he is human, but though being a Sith, he's had some parts of him be scarred and replaced with mechanical components. So really, as Obi-Wan once said, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. Lawful evil, to be precise. And his background, he is actually a soldier. He is a remnant of an army, and he was actually an officer in that army. So he rose to prominence, but caught the eye of a Sith Lord who saw great promise in him and felt the dark side in him. So trained Tenebris to become a Sith Master. Unfortunately, that master ended up meeting his end at Tenebris' hand, because that is how Sith fucking do things. So, let's take a look at the personality traits. Personality traits for him: I like being strong and breaking things. Very appropriate for a Sith, don't you think? Ideals. Evil-aligned ideal here: might. In life, as in war, the stronger force wins. Again, very much fits in with the Sith ideals and beliefs, and the Sith Code, which we'll actually talk about a little bit later. The bonds for Darth Tenebris: I'll never forget the crushing defeat that my company suffered, or the enemies who dealt it. This again will play into a feat later, because it actually plays into a little bit of what fuels him in the dark side. And last but not least, a very appropriate flaw for a Sith: my hatred of my enemies is blind and unreasoning. So, let's take a look at the ability scores, shall we? Right. Base strength and base charisma are the strongest stats. 18 to charisma and 15 to strength respectively. With their bonuses, they both ended up at a 20. Base dex is 12, so a little bit speedy. Only ends up going to 13 in the end. Constitution base 9, no bonuses, so it stays in a 9. Intelligence and wisdom both ended up staying at their base scores as well, being 11 and 13 respectively. Now let's take a look at the skills we have. Alright, so here are the skills. Acrobatics, Arcana, Athletics, Deception are all trained. And in fact, Athletics and Deception are very high, both 21. His highest ability skill is Intimidation. The reason for that is because not only is he proficient with it, he has expertise in it, and I'll show you why later. What expertise does is it doubles up your proficiency score, so you get twice the bonus that you normally would. At level 20, your proficiency score automatically ends up being a 6, so he gets plus 12 just from being really, really good at scaring the shit out of people. And other trained skill, Persuasion, pretty good. So let's take a look at his combat stats. We're going to look at here very shortly before I go back and show you what all he really has. His current speed is at 30, so he's by no means anywhere near as fast as Peregrinus. As for his attack abilities, well, before we get to that, his HP is also not as high, 140, done by the same method. And his mage armor AC is only 14 because his dex is not as high. By extension, his initiative is only a +1. So those are not fantastic. But, you know, he doesn't care about whether or not he goes first. He cares about whether or not he's the last person standing. And that is reflected up here in his Pact Blade attack and his spellcasting. His lightsaber is based on a longsword, much like this, and he only wields one as opposed to the two that you see in his character photo. But because of his bonuses to strength, he gets a plus 12 to attack with this. And he also gets higher damage because it's a long sword as opposed to a short sword. And as for his spellcasting ability, he has a plus 11 to hit as opposed to plus 10. So he has a little extra ability to hit. Spell save DC, though, is still an 18. So let's take a look at some of the powers that he has. Of course, he is still Pact of the Blade. And his otherworldly patron, instead of being the Great Old One, is the dark side of the Force. And we do have some different invocations here that I'll show you about here very shortly. So let's pull that open and show. Because he is an officer, he has military rank. So soldiers loyal to your former military organization still recognize your authority and influence, even more so because he's a fucking Dark Lord of the Sith, and defer to you if they are of lower rank. You can exert influence over soldiers and requisition simple equipment or horses for temporary use. Or, instead of horses, ships or vehicles. Again, his spellcasting focus is his lightsaber crystal. He also has the awakened mind, so he has telepathy. Here are the different invocations that he has relative to the Jedi. Agonizing Blast. Your Eldritch Blast deals an additional 4 damage. So, yeah, he's wanting to bring the hurt. He is really wanting to bring the hurt. Armor Shadows, I actually put that on the other one, so now you can see actually what it is. You can cast Mage Armor on yourself at will without using a spell slot or material components. Sign of Ill Omen. Cast Bestow Curse once using a Warlock spell slot. A long rest recuperates. Okay. And again, he has Entropic Ward and Thought Shield. His Mystic Arcanum are different. For him, I went with Circle of Death, Finger of Death, a lot of death going on here, Feeble Mind, and Power Word Kill. Alright, and again, he has Eldritch Master. I only went with one set of score increases and went with 4 feats instead. And of course, one of them I gave my ever popular Weapon Master. Excuse me. But here are the other ones that I gave him. Elemental Adept Lightning. Your spells ignore resistance to lightning damage. When rolling damage dice for spells that deal lightning damage, treat any ones as 2s. Gee, I wonder why he would be adept with lightning. Something to ponder, no? Charger. When you dash, use a bonus action to make a single melee weapon attack. If you move 10 feet in a straight line before attacking, plus 5 to damage, or push target 10 feet. So he's very much, again, a hard hitter kind of a dude. Tavern Brawler, proficient with improvised weapons and unarmed strikes. Unarmed strike damage die is a d4. When you hit with an unarmed strike or improvised weapon, may grapple target as a bonus action. So he's into getting down and dirty when he's got it. Alright, let's take a look at some of the spells Tenebris has. Here's the aforementioned Bestow Curse. It is a concentration spell. And it is also a touch spell, which means you must get in close enough to be able to actively touch them with your free hand. Target must pass a wisdom save or be cursed with one or of the following. Choose an ability score and force disadvantage on checks and saves. Disadvantage on attacks against you. Makes a wisdom save at the beginning of each turn or waste its action. Or your attack or spells deal 1d8 additional necrotic damage. So basically, you can effectively almost reliably stun someone with Bestow a Curse. And at a 5th level slot being cast, that lasts for 8 hours with no concentration needed. That's pretty powerful. You can really screw up somebody's day. Bixby's Hand, we talked about that earlier. Of course, he'd be more inclined to use the crushing and choking aspects there. Circle of Death, one of the Mystic Arcanum. Alright, each creature in a 60-foot radius sphere of this spell takes 8d6 necrotic damage. Make a con save for half. So, and that's an instant spell. So it happens immediately. And if they don't make that con save, if they don't roll a con 18, then they're going to be getting a hurt. Dominate Person, a very dark side kind of power to have. Humanoid must pass wisdom save or be charmed by you, and has an advantage on that save if they are actively fighting you or your allies. You have a telepathic link that you can issue simple and general commands through. Use action to assert total and precise control for 1 turn. Target can retry save every time that it's damaged. So every time somebody hits it, they can try and make the wisdom save again. But if they're either getting missed or if they keep failing that wisdom save, they're under your control for quite a long time. A minute in game can be equivalent to several turns out of game. depending on how your DM defines a minute. Eldritch Blast, we talked about that earlier. Enhanced ability, we talked about that earlier. Fear. Fear will keep the local systems in line. This is another concentration spell. Each creature in cone must pass a wisdom save, 30-foot cone in front of you, or drop whatever it's holding and be frightened for the duration. Affected creatures must use the dash action to move away from you each turn. If it ends its turn without line of sight to you, it may repeat the wisdom save to end the spell for it. So basically, drop your shit and run, son! Right. Feeble Mind, another one of the Mystic Arcana. Alright, this one is another instant, high-level instant. Target takes 46 psychic damage and must make an intelligence save. No, you don't save against the damage. You take the damage and make the save. If it fails, its intelligence and charisma become 1. It can't cast spells. It can't activate magic items. It can't understand languages or communicate. The only thing it can do is identify its friends, follow them, and protect them. Just pure instinct kind of things. This is effective for 30 days, after which you can try and save again, and if you still fail, you are screwed. That every 30 days, that seems a little overpowered for me, and I realized this was an 8th level spell, but good God. Alright, Finger of Death, another one of the Mystic Arcana. This one's also insane. Another instant spell. The 7th level spell, if I remember correctly. Which spell levels and character levels are different, but that's a topic for another time. Target takes 7d8 plus 30 necrotic damage. Constitution save for half damage. Any humanoids killed by the spell rise as zombies permanently under your command, following your verbal orders. You can create force zombies. I'll just leave that there for a bit. Force zombies. Hex, an archetypal warlock spell here. It is a duration spell. Deal 1d6 necrotic damage to target when you hit with a weapon attack, and target has disadvantage on checks made with an ability that you choose. If the target drops below 0 HP before the spell ends, use your bonus action to transfer that hex to a new target. So, how that works, basically. With the 5th level spot, actually, you can maintain it for an entire day. So, 1d6 extra damage to that guy. Oh, he dropped. You're cursed now. And you can keep going through that literally all day long. Alright, jump and levitate. We have already gone through that. Lightning bolts. Force lightning. An instant spell. Creatures on the 5-foot line take 8d6 lightning damage. Dex save for half. Higher levels, an additional 1d6 per slot above third, so up to 10d6 possible lightning damage. If you roll max damage, you can do 60 lightning damage in one go. If that's not force lightning, I don't know what is. Actually, I do know what that is, but we'll get into that later. Phantasmal Killer. This was another one. This was actually an optional spell that I drew in Something I forgot to mention on the Jedi, some of these spells are actually either wizard, sorcerer, bard, druid, or paladin spells, but we went ahead and, both Ted from Nerdarchy and myself decided to add some additional ones that best fit kind of the flavor of having a Jedi or a Sith, which is part of the reason why you saw Lightning Bolt in there, because Force Lightning. This is another one that I pulled in that I thought fit with the Sith. Phantasmal Killer. Target must make a wisdom save or be frightened for the duration. At the start of each turn, character must make a wisdom save or take 4d10 psychic damage. Successful save ends the spell. You can cast it at the 5th level spot, and it's 5d10 psychic damage. Excuse me for a second. Excuse me. So, yeah. Oh, and by the way, frightening. That means they get a little bonus, along with the fear spell that we talked about earlier, that I'll talk about when we get into the actual Sith feats. Power Word Kill, the last of the Mystic Arcana, the 9th level spell. This is an instant spell, and you are about to see why it is 9th level. One target with 100 or fewer HP dies instantly. No save, no attack roll, nothing to prevent you from dying. He speaks the word, and you fall dead. If that ain't dark side, I don't know what is. Shocking Grasp. This one's very much Force Lightning as well. It is actually a cantrip. An instant. Make melee spell attack against the target. You get advantage if the target is wearing metal armor. On hit, 4d8 lightning damage, and the target cannot make any reactions until the start of your next turn. Bring the pain. And it's a cantrip, so you can cast it over and over and over again. Alright. Thunderwave, kind of like a massive force push here, takes place in a 15-foot cube. Each creature in area takes 2d8 thunder damage and is pushed 10 feet away from you. Con save for half damage and no push. Unsecured objects are immediately pushed 10 feet away, and you can hear it all the way out to 300 feet. And then last but not least, Witch Bolt, this time using it unaltered. 1d12 lightning damage on hit, and on each turn for duration, an additional 1d12 lightning damage. The initial damage goes up to as much as 5d12 if you cast it with the 5th level spot, which I don't know why you wouldn't. If you're a warlock, you don't have much choice in the matter anyway. And basically all you have to do, if the only thing you do is cast that, you're going to be doing quite a bit of damage to them. So, excuse me. So yeah, this is basically the Force Lightning that Emperor Palpatine used on Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. And now, young Jedi, now, young Skywalker, you will die. Alright, so enough of that. Let's get into the meat of the Sith class. And these, with one exception, and are all created by me. These are all feats that I came up with. So, again, there is one exception. And again, I did put in relevant quotes, all related to the dark side. Because the patron is the dark side. And for the quote for that patron feat, I give you the Sith code, the dark mirror to the Jedi code. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. And here is the description for that. You are at one with the Force. The Force gives you unimagined power and the will to use it. You do not serve the Force, but you bend it to your will. Or at least, so you are led to believe. First level feat, I won't go into what it is again because it is exactly the same as the Jedi version. I liked it and I didn't see any reason to change it. But here is the quote that I put for it from one of those things, part of the extended canon that is now no longer canon, only this was made non-canon long before the new movie came out. Thank you so much, CGI Clone Wars series. From the micro-series Clone Wars, made by Gennady Tartakovsky for the Cartoon Network, in leading up to Episode 3, the dark side flows strongly in me, for I am Sith. Asajj Ventress, you're an evil lady, and yet I love you so much. Here's where we start with the feats that I created. Sith training, kind of the mirror to highly trained. And the quote from this, yes, I went with a quote from the prequels. Feel free to scream about it all you want. It's not going to change the fact that this quote fit. Is it possible to learn this power? Not from a Jedi. Of course, Anakin Skywalker and Emperor Palpatine. Revenge of the Sith. Here is the description. You take a nickname in the Dark Lord tradition, a description of your origins and aspirations in a single word. You now have proficiency in intimidation and may choose proficiency in either athletics or persuasion. So that's where proficiency in intimidation came from. Here's where things get really fun. See, the next three are all based around various quotes by Yoda related to the nature of the dark side and what leads to it. The first one is the power of fear. And another prequel quote, but a very powerful prequel quote in and of itself. And one of the few prequel quotes that could have really fit in with the original trilogy, if you think about it. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. My Yoda is horrible. This is a level 6 feat. You gain expertise in intimidation. Fear and all spells that invoke the power of fear gain a +2 bonus to attack or save DC. Meaning, for these spells, Darth Tenebris here gets a +13 to fear attack rolls, and the save DC for those ends up being 20. Good luck not being scared of this, boy! Level 10 feat, the power of anger. This one, going back to the original trilogy, this time Empire Strikes Back. Now, release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me. You channel the power of your rage, much like a barbarian, beginning with 2 uses a day. This goes up to 3 uses at level 13, 4 uses at level 17, and 5 uses at level 20. Your bonus to damage is +1, +2, +3, and +4 respectively. For those of you who aren't familiar with the rage mechanic of a barbarian, it is basically a way where a barbarian can fall into being a berserker. And barbarians actually get additional things with their rage depending on what kind of build they are. But I decided to eschew those and just go full on power for the anger part. So all it is you have a certain amount of uses per day, and those uses give you a bonus to damage. Next up, the level 14 feat is the power of hatred. Strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey to the dark side will be complete. I love doing Emperor Palpatine's voice. Choose one of the following creature types. You can see the list of them there, but I will tell you right now, for Darth Tenebris, he has already chosen Jedi as his favored creature to attack. This does kind of go with along the same lines as favored enemy for Ranger, but a little bit different, because instead of having more out of combat bonuses, this one again mostly focuses on combat. You can focus your hatred once per day to gain a +2 power bonus to attack one creature of this type for the rest of the encounter. At level 17, this increases to 3 of this chosen type. At level 20, this becomes 5. So when you first get this at level 14, you can only focus your hatred towards one creature that you choose. In his case, one particular Jedi. So if you've got a group of Jedi, you really have to decide which one you hate the most. Now, if you have a group of Jedi at level 17, and there are 3 or more of them on the field, then you get to pick 3 of them. So, I hate you, and I hate you, and oh, fuck you particularly. Fuck you in particular. And then at level 20, if there are 5 of that kind of creature, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're okay, fuck you. A little Kevin Smith there. And then finally, the level 20 feature for the Sith, True Lord of the Sith. And we end with yet another Yoda quote. Once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will, as it did Obi-Wan's apprentice. Here is the description. The dark side has overcome you. You cannot be shaken from your path to domination. Gain +1 to strength and charisma. Gain +3 to saves against persuasion and charm. So basically, you are a pure force of darkness. And anyone who tries to get in your way is going to get right fucked. Nobody should dare stand in your way, because if they try, they're going to get this shoved up one very, very painful spot. Lovely, isn't it? Well, that about wraps it up. I don't know about you, but I had a hell of a lot of fun creating these. I hope that you've had fun seeing them come to life in front of you. Once again, I cannot thank Nerdarchy enough for the inspiration for creating these, and for the mechanics for creating the Jedi character. Also, I want to thank everyone involved with Star Wars at any point who worked on it, the good and the bad, because this is an enduring cultural force that will last for years to come. People who have never seen the original movies are going to be seeing Star Wars for the first time here this coming weekend on the 18th. And for something to have lasted over 30 years now is just immensely powerful. Almost 40 years that Star Wars has been around. In a couple of years, 40 years Star Wars has been around, and it is still as beloved as it was on release day of Episode 4. And, you know, we're all fans of Star Wars. Uh, we all love Star Wars. We've, even in the dark times, during the prequels or during some of the weirder parts of the expanded universe, even when we've gotten games that haven't really lived up to what we know Star Wars to be. And even when it seemed like Star Wars was full on done as a movie series because of what had happened with the prequels, Star Wars has endured, and it's because of all of us who are fans of Star Wars. All of us who love both light and dark side of the Force. Those of us who, love watching the Battle of Rebels versus Empire, or the Battle of Jedi versus Sith, the Battle of, ancient evils versus a long established republic. Those of us who love Star Wars have kept it alive. And that's why we've come to this day where we're getting ready to watch a brand new movie in this universe that, yes, changes a lot of things that we had known about the universe for years, but at the same time gives us even more of an expansion of that universe. Some other thanks I want to give. I want to give thanks to the people at Beyond Tabletop for creating a fantastic tool that allows much more customization. And I think I will be using this moving forward, especially for for characters that have a little more additional flavor to them that I need to put in and customize better. Especially because this is still being updated. This is still being worked on. So this isn't going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And it's not going to be taken over by a porn blog. Thank God. I also want to thank starwordz.com. That's STARWORDZ.com. Why is Z? Well, because poor literacy is cool. The reason why I'm thanking them is because if it wasn't for Star Words, I would not have had that intro to show you, the Star Wars intro. I would also like to thank myself for being a wonderful hummer and singing the Star Wars theme for that intro. No, I'm not that narcissistic. Anything else? Most of all, I want to thank you all, the casual fanatics, because there's well over 100 of you now. At the time of the recording of this video, there's 106. There may be more by the time this video actually goes up. And knowing that there are people that do care about my videos and actually watch my videos and share my videos with other people is immensely great. And I'm going to keep doing these because I enjoy doing these and because I know you enjoy me doing them. With that in mind, I have one last thing to say on this video. Down in the comments below, tell me which one of these builds you like better. Are you a light side fan? Do you prefer the Jedi build? Or are you more partial to the dark side build? Are you more in favor of Darth Tenebris over Master Peregrinus? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I am Jeremy, the Dork Lord of the Sith. Until next time, keep it casual, and may the Force be with you.